Court disqualifying Mr. Trump from the state's ballot for engaging in insurrection, even though he's never been charged or convicted of the crime. His GOP primary opponent, Vivek Ramaswamy, blasting the ruling.
That's not America. America is not a country where a small group of aristocrats, a small group of effectively monarchs decides who can and cannot govern in this country. That's not America.
Ramaswamy says if Mr. Trump's name does not appear on Colorado's state ballot, he will ask to have his name removed and challenged the other Republican presidential candidates to do the same. Barring further court action, Mr. Trump's name will appear on the ballot in North Carolina. That state's elections board rejecting a voter's challenge, saying it lacked the authority to consider excluding a candidate. Homeland Security says they apprehended 12,000 illegal migrants crossing the southern border on Monday. That's a new one-day record.
The situation at the southern border has got so bad that multiple sources tell me Federal Bureau of Prisons personnel have been sent down here to help Border Patrol with transportation of illegal immigrants. The Bureau of Prisons confirming this for me in a statement where they confirm they are providing transportation resources, and they tell me those resources are, quote, limited.
Fox's Bill Maloogian still unresolved negotiations between Congress and the Biden administration on a supplemental military spending bill and policy changes at the border. Senate Majority Leader Schumer.
There's more work to do to pass legislation protecting America's security and the security of the Western world. This week, we made important progress.
But many senators have already left Washington for the holidays. America is listening to Fox News.
Santa's coming and things are looking up. Bank Pacific has rolled out Rudolph's favorite, My Christmas Loan, with the annual percentage rate as low as 7.49% and up to $50,000. And with our Bank Pacific contactless Visa debit card, you have the flexibility of using your money when you want, where you want. My Christmas Loan, contactless Visa debit card. Let's make Christmas season merrier in 23. Equal opportunity lender, credit conditions apply. Merry Christmas from Bank Pacific.
The holidays are here again, and American WaterTech wishes you and your loved ones a joyful holiday season. Our popular holiday special is back, and for a limited time only, we are offering the whole house system of a Connecticut non-electric water softener and a reverse osmosis water drinking system for the incredible discounted price of only $2,995, inclusive of basic installation and 1-year limited warranty. Hurry, this sale is on until December 29th while supplies last. See store for details or call us at 671-649-2301.
Israel says it would like to reach an agreement with Hamas to free more hostages.
129 Israeli hostages remain in Gaza. Some of their families protest by sleeping outside the Kiryat military headquarters in Tel Aviv, demanding the government bring their loved ones home. The head of Israel's Mossad intelligence agency discussed the possibility of a hostage deal in Poland on Monday with CIA Director Bill Burns and Qatar's Prime Minister. But Hamas refuses to negotiate.
Fox's Nate Foy in Israel. Hamas has said there'll be no more hostages released until there is a total ceasefire in Gaza. Federal judges ordered the public disclosure of the identities of more than 150 people mentioned in a mountain of court documents related to the late financier Jeffrey Epstein, saying that most of the names are already public and many had not objected to their release. Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn and some other congressional Republicans are still seeking the flight logs from Epstein's private jet. The Senate has unanimously confirmed 11 top-ranking military officers, ending a months-long blockade by Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama. A federal judge lifting an order that had blocked removal of a monument from Arlington National Cemetery erected to commemorate the Civil War.
A spokesperson for the Arlington National Cemetery says the Army will immediately resume the process of removing a Confederate memorial, explaining surrounding graves, headstones, and the landscape will be carefully protected. The figure unveiled in 1914 features a bronze woman crowned with olive leaves meant to represent the American South. The Pentagon moving to take it down last year after a recommendation from Congress to review military facilities celebrating the Confederacy. A group called Defend Arlington suing to pause the removal, alleging it's historically essential. A U.S. District Court judge in Virginia ruling the takedown can proceed. Kristen Goodwin, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
The Nissan Ninja is back, and he's slashing prices on our entire certified pre-owned inventory. But how low will he go? 20%? 30%? No, he's slashing up to 40%.
Nani?
All makes and models available. Sports cars, slashed. Luxury cars, slashed. Trucks, slashed. Crossovers and SUVs, slashed. Get to Nissan Guam before this Ninja disappears. Fees not included. See dealer for details.
Christmas trees are going up at the Security Title Office in Tamuning, and with them comes the music and joy of the season. As we reflect on the ups and downs of 2023, one thing remains constant, and that is the deep gratitude we have for our customers and the meaningful work we do for our real estate community. Thank you for trusting us with your property. From our Security Title family to yours, we wish you a Christmas season filled with peace and joy.
Your pup deserves to have healthy skin and a smooth, soft coat, so book your appointment today at the Bougie Booney Dog Salon in Upper Tumon. Yes, that's Bougie, B-O-U-J-I-E. Grooming services for all breeds and sizes include a bath with high-quality shampoo and conditioner, haircuts, de-shedding, and complimentary nail trims. The cutest part is the Christmas photo shoot. You gotta see for yourself. Check them out at the Bougie Booney on Instagram. Book your appointment online at the bougiebooney.booksy.com, WhatsApp 797-4163, or reach out on FB and IG.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Pilgrim.
Is that your John Wayne?
That's the beginning of my John Wayne, yeah. Okay, so here we are for another exciting, elucidating, educational episode of Tall Tales. I'm going to start out with the best I can do for Zemi Akotny since our daily newspaper stopped writing editorials and our other daily newspaper stopped being a newspaper. So I just have to do the best I can. I've got this editorial or this op-ed written by a guy named Bruce Fronin that I started a couple days ago. It was a little long, so I didn't want to try to do it all at one time. And the title of it is Burke on Our Crisis of Characters. He's talking about Edmund Burke, the English parliamentarian, statesman, etc., whose famous quotation went like this: "The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is that good men do nothing." And how well aware of that are we, Jose?
Very well.
So he started out talking about, in this op-ed, talking about individuals, character, and things like that. And that's about where I stopped. I'm going to get to the punchline here in just a few lines. So he goes on to say, he says, men of intemperate minds cannot be free of the passions. Cannot be free. Their passions forge their fetters. Do you know what fetters are, Jose?
I know what a fetterman is.
Yeah. Burke's adversaries were the godfathers of our adversaries. They were the sophisters, economists, and calculators empowered by French revolutionary rationalism. These Jacobins were men of small, twisted souls who sought unlimited power by tearing down France's fundamental religious social order and replacing it with grand schemes of mass organization and control. But compared to the social justice warriors of today, they were veritable giants. So he's comparing today's social justice warriors with the bad guys from the French Revolution.
Uh-huh.
And then he goes on to say, we no longer live in a time of great murderous revolutions. We live in the wasteland created by Jacobins, Marxists, Maoists, and progressives. The Jacobins claim to be freeing people from the dead hand of the past so that their natural goodness can rule. In reality, they strip from the people what Burke called the wardrobe of moral imagination, their self-understanding as social beings in need of faith, family, and the genuine freedoms of local self-government. The revolutionaries left only man's naked, shivering nature to be reshaped by those in power. Klaus Schwab, for instance, Bill Gates, that outfit. The Democrats, the progressives, Joe Biden. Having done so, however, they left their successors with only broken characters and warped personalities, incapable of engaging in reasoned, good faith discussions regarding the common good. We must take the fact of our adversaries' corrupt characters in account in our current struggles. Corrupt characters. And are we talking about you, Maneka? Corrupt characters. For example, while it's easy to show the basic flaws and dishonesty undergirding today's claims of systemic racism, gender fluidity, and various cooked-up global crises, the purveyors of these delusions cannot be argued out of their positions. Repeating, they cannot be argued out of their provisions. Once you decide that the rice is red, it doesn't matter what proofs you bring to the table. Even an interesting graphic like this one. Yeah. Now you can see the narrative up there says orange, but you can see that the letters are red. Number 2, you can see that the letters are orange, but the narrative is red. Systemic racism. You can't argue people out of that, no matter how persuasive you are, no matter how clear your proofs are. Just ask, what's her name, Padua over at the Daily News, or Cecile Chargaloff. You can't argue them out of that.
It's kind of a really bad derangement when you insist that on your fiesta table is Donald Trump.
Exactly.
Or cannot be.
Yeah.
That was something discussed on one of the programs today of people who insist. I guess a caller called in about his dad, who's very liberal, and his dad doesn't care if everything about Donald Trump is false, if he's actually a great guy. He just doesn't want anybody in the White House who doesn't mean tweets. That's all.
That's it.
That's it. And that's the derangement of this type of mindset.
Yeah, yeah. This was on Ray's show this morning?
I don't know if it was Ray's show or one of the network programs.
Yeah. These delusions cannot be argued out of their positions. Resentment, greed, psychological trauma, and pure lust for power, not reason, explain the actions of those on the front lines of the culture wars. In political terms, they are simply working to eliminate social and cultural obstacles to absolute political power. Today's social activists serve their inner demons and the interests of myopic functionaries in Washington. Indirectly, of course, they serve the high-tech and financial overlords whose money buys them power, but not wisdom. and their off delusional thinking, these would-be global demigods and their servants are not working to solve any specific crisis, let alone establish any specific utopia. They simply want to keep power in the right hands. Thus, debates over climate change and the like are largely beside the point. There will always be another crisis so long as we cede to our central government any claim to legitimacy in ordering our lives as one formless subject people. I'm going to come back to this tomorrow.
Some great paragraphs there.
It is, yeah, some really good writing. Okay, let's take a peek at the card and see who's going to be fighting with whom today. Of course, I've got to tip my hat to Moneca Flores because they're talking about Moneca, really, is what they're doing. Now, it doesn't have power, but really wants to grab it and use it absolutely. Absolutely. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And then after that, I'm going to tip my hat to Colorado versus Trump. Yeah, I'm sure that our informed tailgaters here know that the Colorado Supreme Court ruled that Trump cannot appear on the primary ballot in Colorado because of the third section of the 14th Amendment. I'll get in and do a very thorough tailgater type job on that one tomorrow, chapter and verse, as it were.
I've already concluded, Bob.
Yes,
the air is just way too thin up there for them to have a court.
I think so. The Mile High City, Denver.
Just not enough oxygen.
Yeah, that's for sure. And then after that, I've got pharmacies versus the legislature. I've got Doug versus Jay. Scottus versus the deep state, Pope Francis versus the Holy See. And of course, the first item on the card is nothing other than systemic racism. Brought to you by Jeff's Pirates Cove. Let's have a peek at Jeff. There he is right there. That's Jeff standing right beside me. I'm wearing a Pirates Cove t-shirt. Jeff's wearing his Tailgater t-shirt. Jeff sponsors systemic racism on this program, something for which we should all be grateful because it's an important part of the show and it's an important part of the island. We had a guy yesterday, the most dangerous man in the room, was one of those who was over 60, had never been to Jeff's before. And he was very grateful that I clued him in on what a great place Jeff's is. Good food, good drink, museum, bookstore, gift shop, beach, good atmosphere, pleasant service. It's all there at Jeff's. So if you haven't been to Jeff's Pirates Cove, give yourself a treat. Head for Jeff's. They're open. Jeff's open at 9 in the morning till 6 at night. He sponsors systemic racism, and there it is. You look at that rice. What color is that rice? It is orange. It is not red. But the narrative, the Jacobins, the French revolutionaries will say, no, 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 that rice is red. We've called it red ever since, and we're not going to stop. We don't care what you say. Don't bring that round fruit in here and compare the colors. We know what we're talking about, and we're not going to have anything other than red rice. So I use that as a helpful analogy when I get to some of the things almost every day. So many items on the card are the narrative up against the truth. And when it's narrative versus truth and facts, so often in many people's minds, the narrative prevails. And I point that out as systemic racism. And then next item on the card is Moneca versus reality, I think. And by way of explanation, you all know what happened on October 6th. A group of warriors escaped from the Gaza Strip invaded Israel and committed a massacre, a horrible massacre, killing, rape, almost too brutal for description. And they did this, and they later on confessed when the leaders of Hamas met with reporters from the New York Times and Qatar and said, this is why we did this. We instructed our soldiers to be as brutal as they could, kill and rape as many as they could, take hostages, bring them back into the Gaza Strip. Because what we want to do, what we're concerned about is this. Our movement is losing momentum. Our movement, of course, is to reclaim all of that piece of dirt called Israel for Palestinians and completely wipe out the Jews in Israel. That's what we want to do. And we're losing momentum. In other words, peace is breaking out because many of the Arab countries were reaching accommodations with Israel. So their game was to come over and do this brutal massacre in Egypt, in Israel, hoping that the Israelis would overreact. And I think they did, turning the Arab world against them and turning the war of public relations in their favor. And I think that happened too. So Israel, of course, reacted in righteous indignation, and rightfully so, and made perhaps some statements that they later on would regret. We're going to take care of this type of stuff, right? And sent the Israeli Defense Force into Gaza, and their aim was to eliminate all of the Hamas from Gaza, kill them all. And in the process of doing that, innocent civilians were killed. Not intentionally, perhaps, but killed nevertheless. And according to Hamas, 15,000 people have been killed in Israel. In Gaza. All understandable. Israel, like any sovereign, has the right to defend itself, and if it has to go into the Gaza Strip to do it, let them do it. The United States has backed Israel, has begun cautioning them to make sure that they do use every means to protect the lives of civilians so that the smallest number of civilians can be killed. But I would say that Israel is the good guys in this thing, and they have said that they are trying to minimize the killing of civilians. It's war. In war, civilians get killed. But, we can't let that stay in Israel where it belongs. Here's Monica Flores in a quote in the Post. It starts out like this. Flores likened the atrocities in Palestine committed by the Israelis to what Chamorro people have gone through. The thing is, we are a colonized people in the Marianas and in the Pacific, and we know very well what it's like to be imprisoned, to be forcefully removed from our lands, to be forced to march, to lose our language, to lose our land to eminent domain for so-called national security, and for us to watch it happening, for the whole world watching it happening in Palestine right now, and watch how the United States government and other Western governments are basically supporting that horrible ethnic cleansing. We're here to demand more of our leaders. Our leaders cannot take that position, and they need to rise up for the Palestinian people. Monica is drawing a moral equivalence between what Israel did, painted in the worst light possible, comparing what Israel did to what the United States is doing in Guam right now and has done since 1898. Give me a break.
Wrong.
Yeah, but that's that angle, you know, the Proteji La Texan, where the aim is to find people and say, what bad thing can you tell me about Americans and the United States? Nothing. Come on, you got to try harder than that. Okay. Now that led us into the demonstration at the Wildlife Refuge a few days ago, where the prime mover is Maria Hernandez. And there was an article that appeared in the Daily News talking about an extremely biased appearing in the Daily News, talking about the rights that Chamorro families have to the land where the wildlife, a federal installation, is built. And of course, there are no rights to the land. And talking about the Hernandez and her relatives educating those visiting the refuge, and coming up with what has to be fantasy, that 60 years ago the land was taken by the United States government in eminent domain. 60 years ago, that was 1963, folks. This was post or 13 years after the Organic Act. So those people were paid just compensation for their land. They had a jury trial if they wanted it, etc. I remember, I've got to brush up on my memory about how much of a problem these people were after their property was taken by eminent domain, but they're maintaining this fiction that they still have an ownership interest in it, and the United States should give it back to the original owners. So here's where I'm going to pick it up. Janet Pangilinan Leon Guerrero, daughter of Alfonso Pangilinan, whose family owned land at the refuges shared how she grew up coming to Retidian. Not living at Retidian, but coming to Retidian. The family often camped, ate fresh fish, gathered with each other. It was a wonderful experience, and she had fond memories of it. Now, they want you to kind of picture them living there and being chased off, but they weren't living there. They went there to picnic. She said she can't have the same experience with her grandchildren because the family has to follow limited hours the refuge is open. I'm so sad I'm not able to show my grandchildren. Well, I've taken my grandchildren back to my hometown, Jose. They're not able to see the stuff I grew up with either. Guess what? Time marches on. Hernandez also shared concerns that Retidian was closed since Typhoon Mawar in May, and it was unacceptable. It was closed for 6 months. Now she has the ability to dictate how the wildlife is run, apparently. The original landowners and traditional healers had no access to the land during this time. And of course, they're not original landowners, they're pre-condemnation landowners. She said Retidian original landowners requested access to Retidian in October, and the request denied by refuge staff, who imposed a limit on the number of people allowed on the land at one time. Guess what? They're trying to recover from the typhoon. Request to access, our land, often met with many conditions that we are forced to negotiate. Federal agencies have too much control over Chamorro land. Guys, it's not Chamorro land. It's federal property. It's not your land. It hasn't been your land for 60 years. It will never be your land. Get used to it. And I blame rags like the Daily News for fostering this false belief. It's not their land. They don't have any rights to the land. Your story is just wrong. And it continues to foster this false hope in people, and it removes them from reality and makes them think that they've got something coming that they don't have anything coming.
Former landowner or ancestral landowner, that's a talismanic word.
It is, yeah. Ancestral landowner is indeed a talismanic word like we went into yesterday. And then she goes on to say, our people have given enough. It's time to stand up against federal control of our lands. Chamorro lands belong in Chamorro hands. Land is life. Clever slogan. The Fish and Wildlife Service reopened the wildlife refuge, including Retidian Beach, from 7:30 to 4 Sunday. And then they spent a little time talking about the reopening. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences about what could have been the news. All the rest of the article is about Maria Hernandez bitching, is what it amounts to. Nice job, Daily News.
This was both the Post and the Daily News content of the stories. It says if they went there for the protests and an anniversary spontaneously came out.
Yeah.
It's the other way around.
It really is. It really is. Okay, next on the card then is Candid versus the Chief. Let's take a short break here, Jose.
Santa's coming and things are looking up. Bank Pacific has rolled out Rudolph's favorite, My Christmas Loan, with the annual percentage rate as low as 7.49% and up to $50,000. And with our Bank Pacific contactless Visa debit card, you have the flexibility of using your money when you want, where you want. My Christmas Loan, contactless Visa debit card. Let's make Christmas season merrier in 23. Equal opportunity lender, credit conditions apply. Merry Christmas from Bank Pacific.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Sure, you can give Fido another box of milk bones for Christmas, but good news. With 5 days left till Christmas Day, the Bougie Boonie Dog Salon is there to tell you Fido deserves a grooming session. You can book your appointment online today at the bougieboonie.booksy.com website or go to their WhatsApp at 671-797-4163. Give your dog his day.
We now return to Tall. We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
So our next item on the card here is Candid versus the Chief. It actually could be titled The Chief versus the Freedom of Information Act, which you'll see as we get into this. And this ran on Troy's website, Candid News, and the title is The Ugly Truth of Police Brutality and Piss-Poor Excuses. Unchecked police brutality is real in Guam, and our governor and chief of police are dressing up that ugliness in a sequin mestiza they hope no one will notice. How long has it been since you've seen a lady in a mestiza, Jose?
Besides on stage in a costume?
Yeah.
It's been a while.
You know, 60 years ago, the farmers market is where the Agana Loop is downtown. That's where the farmers market was. And you go into the farmers market any day of the week, and there'd be a half dozen or a dozen manbija in there in their mestiza selling pugwa and bitter melon and that stuff. And, you know, it seemed like it was almost a law that any female over 60 was dressed in a mestiza back in those days. You never see it anymore.
No more.
What's gone wrong with our culture, Jose?
What happened to tradition?
Exactly. Okay. And the problem is that if we remain quiet about this reality, it will grow, and a time will come when the viral video of a dirty cop on Guam killing an innocent civilian, all in the name of testosterone, will end up on the news marquee of Times Square. Throughout the Leon Guerrero administration, several viral videos depicting police officers assaulting civilians in their custody and several more complaints of police brutality have all ended in silence from the police department and the governor, who has direct oversight of its operations. Every time there's a public outcry, Chief of Police Stephen Ignacio holds a press conference or an interview, proclaims he will be open throughout the investigation, and then nothing. From the get-go, nothing. Several times, thanks in part to the media's failure to follow up, there has been no word about the outcome of these internal affairs investigations, and only when reporters dog the chief and his office, and only after several requests for information has the chief ever provided follow-up information. This is a summary of that information. The investigation has been completed, and because this is a personnel matter, we cannot disclose anything further, which of course is dead wrong. Tailgaters know that.
Wrong.
Really? There's no public interest to be satisfied here? The so-called personnel matter immunity from the Sunshine Act of 1986, amended in 1999, overrides the public's right to know whether you are holding police officers accountable for your use of the police force? Takilalo. Bob Klitzkie, the host of Tall Tales on the Point and an attorney and former jurist. Yeah, let's try that again. Bob Klitzkie, the host of Tall Tales on the Point and an attorney and former jurist. Good going, Jose. Has explained many times how the government's interpretation of the transparency laws is flawed and should be challenged. Shane Healy of The Post recently reported that Ignacio confirmed investigations into 2 recent police brutality cases have been completed. Guess what he said next? This is a personnel matter for $1,000, Alex. What's the name of that show?
Jeopardy.
Jeopardy, yeah. It's the Daily Double. The first investigation was into an incident a few years ago caught on surveillance cameras of 4 police officers continuously beating a man who had not resisted their apprehension. The man, Joshua Titano, sustained severe damage to his eye. In the viral video, he was wearing a motorcycle helmet. The second investigation was into an unnamed cop who allegedly shoved a table into the breast of an elderly woman, causing an immediate seizure, physical and emotional mental harm to this day. The woman, Veronica Patau, confirmed with Candid she was never notified about the completion of the investigation. She learned about it from the Post article. You're a real gentleman, Stephen Ignacio. Mes Chamorro is in a few months. Now, for all of those folks out there, Titongo Fino Chamorro, mes and Chamorro means month. It doesn't mean Calacas.
Right now it's an MESS tomorrow doing this.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, it's spelled MES tomorrow, but given some of the things that Chief Ignacio has done from the get-go, he's trying to have it changed to MESS. Mes Chamorro's in a few months. Might want to have some of your people brush up on that whole respect of your elders. Respecto e manamco. We've got going on in our culture. This is not a personnel matter. This is a police brutality problem. And if Steve Ignacio is not forced to tell the public how he has handled the problem, then how is the public supposed to hold leaders accountable for the disposition of the problem? Are we supposed to blindly trust the police to police the police? That's a great sentence. Are we supposed to blindly trust the police to police the police? Let's see. I had a clever phrase here for that somewhere. Yeah, here it is. Quis custodiet ipsos custodes. Once again, quis custodiet ipsos custodes. Who's going to watch the watchman? That's where we are
Good
right
phrase.
now. Quis custodes ipsos custodes. Steve Ignacio, can you answer that? Certainly not you from the get-go. Are we supposed to blindly trust the police to police the police with their track record of blunders? Red Jeeps, anyone? Ray Tenorio? One thing you got to say about Ray Tenorio, he wasn't slow. He was quick on the draw, Jose. Yeah. If we don't have our day in court of public opinion on this matter, then Stephen Ignacio and everyone under him, after him, can continue to cover up the misdeeds of their fellow officers with absolute impunity, having confidence they never will be held accountable for their violation of Americans' rights in this little piece of America. Is there any issue of transparency Governor Leon Guerrero needs to get a hold of immediately? It is this. It's a personnel matter. Now, I'm going to interject a biographical here, Jose. When I first started doing Tall Tales, I was sending FOIA's sunshines to Crystal Paco, who was the point of contact at the governor's office for Sunshine Act matters. And the first time I got back the answer, I can't discuss that, it's a personnel matter. And I took her through the law. And I said, you don't have to, but you can. Why aren't you? Oh, you mean it's the fact that it's a personnel matter doesn't mean that I can't? Where did you get that? Well, that's when I would talk to other agencies, that's what they always told me. So I thought that was right. Just kind of wrong. Yeah.
Systemic racism.
Exactly. It's a personnel matter is a piss-poor excuse for police brutality and a piss-poor record for Stephen Ignacio and Governor Leon Guerrero to have. Okay, so once again, let's take a look at the law. What a crazy thing to do if you want to find out what the law is, right? Okay, so I've got chapter 10 of 5 GCA. 5 GCA title 10 if you want to take a look. The title of the short title of this is the Sunshine Reform Act of 1999. And as used in this in this chapter, public records. Now, a little schooling here. If you're going to do a sunshine, you've got to ask for public records. You cannot ask for information. You can't say how many police officers were on duty midnight, July the 4th. You can't ask for that, or you can't ask for it, but they don't have to give it to you. What you have to do is say this: you are required to provide public records showing how many police officers were on duty on the 4th of July. See the difference, Jose? You can only ask for public records.
Very specific.
Yeah, and it has to be a public record. They don't have to give you information. But the nice thing about phrasing your question as a public record is they got to answer it. If you just ask how many cops were on the job on the 4th of July at midnight, they can ignore you, and there's nothing you can do about it. How many public records showing how many police officers were on duty on the night of the 4th of July? They got to do it. And if they don't, they know it could cost them $1,000. Just ask Michael Bora how much it costs, to thumb your nose at the Sunshine Law.
He got spanked.
He did indeed. So what is a public record? Very broad definition. Public records includes any writing containing information relating to the conduct of the public's business, which is just about every doggone thing that you'll find in any government files. Prepared, owned, used, or retained by any, now here's where it all comes out. Prepared, owned, or used, or retained by any state or local agency. Little plagiarism here. Yeah, they copied, this is a statute they copied from another jurisdiction, which is fine, because a lawyer will only do original drafting as a last resort. If you copy somebody else's stuff, chances are it's been to court, et cetera. It's been
held.
Yeah, it's been washed and rinsed. But you got to be a little careful. You can't talk about, if you're living in a territory, you can't talk about retained by any state or local agency. So what this shows me is this is a model act. There's the Commission on Model Acts that puts these things together. And then that writing can be in any format, including electronic format, and any out-of-court settlement records. It's all discoverable, right? Any electric format, including WhatsApp, Signal, email, whatever. Now, it doesn't hurt to mention that in your sunshine. Now, the way I do mine, I am very brief and to the point. NLTCOB, which means no later than close of business, a date 4 days down the road, actually a week down the road, you are required to email to me public records, blah, 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 and explain the public records you want. That's all you need for a Sunshine Law request. Now there is a caveat here, and that is that okay, I don't have that section. Okay, then we go to 10108, limitation on the right of inspection. Let's take a break, and I'll come back to the limitation on the right of inspection.
Christmas trees are going up at the Security Title Office in Tamuning, and with them comes the music and joy of the season. As we reflect on the ups and downs of 2023, one thing remains constant, and that is the deep gratitude we have for our customers and the meaningful work we do for our real estate community. Thank you for trusting us with your property. From our Security Title family to yours, we wish you a Christmas season filled with peace and joy.
Santa's coming and things are looking up. Bank Pacific has rolled out Rudolph's favorite My Christmas Loan with the annual percentage rate as low as 7.49% and up to $50,000. And with our Bank Pacific contactless Visa debit card, you have the flexibility of using your money when you want, where you want. My Christmas Loan, contactless Visa debit card. Let's make Christmas season merrier in 23. Equal opportunity lender, credit conditions apply. Merry Christmas from Bank Pacific.
Okay, so we left off, we're looking at the law on sunshine and the so-called personnel matters exemption from disclosure. This is 5 GCA section 10108, limitation on right of inspection. And it says, except as provided in section 10109 of this chapter, nothing in this chapter shall be construed to require disclosure of records that are any of the following. Now, what that means is nothing, you can't require the chief to disclose this, but there's nothing says that he can't. And Rory tried that one, you know, and on one of the sunshines I sent to him, oh, I'd really like to give it to you, but I can't in accordance with, wrong. Now, here's what subsection C actually says. Personnel, medical, or similar files, the disclosure of which would constitute an unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. All information regarding salary, name and worksite, mailing address of each employee, and public officials shall be public record. So let me go back and read the first sentence again. This is what they don't have to disclose. Personnel, medical, or similar files, the disclosure of which would constitute an unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. Okay. Now remember, the chief, the fact that something is in someone's personnel file, the chief can disclose it if he wants to. Nothing says he can't. Medical, you got the whole HIPAA thing there to deal with, so he probably can't there. But when it comes to personal files, the only thing stopping the chief would be an invasion of personal privacy. Now, is what a cop does on duty, is that disclosing a detail of his personal privacy? No.
Not at all.
Not at all. If we're talking about how many children he has, what his social security number is, his wife's name even, his wife's maiden name, that's personal.
From the get-go.
From the get-go. But anything dealing with his duties as a police officer is not personal to him. So disclosing it is not an unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. But the first word of that section is personnel, and they don't want to read beyond that. Oh, I can't tell you that it's a personnel matter. It's just BS. So newspaper reporters, if you're out, you should be listening. When a director says, I can't, that's personnel matter, what you need to do is say this. According to 5 GCA section 10108 subsection C, you can. I can't force you to, but you can. And since you can, I want to know why you don't want to, why you won't. And it's a personnel matter is not an answer. And if you try that, that's exactly what's going to appear in the newspaper.
Hold them accountable.
Exactly. Exactly. And then, of course, if the person who submitted the sunshine isn't satisfied, he can go to court. And there's a little bit more to that too. And if he prevails, he recovers his costs and attorney's fees, and there's a possibility that the court can fine the chief of police $1,000. And if it's a willful failure, it's even a criminal offense. So we've got a really good tool here, but the people who have the tools in their hands, the media, are just not using it.
And it has to be the media because they're the ones that have the platform. And to have the platform is also a form of power. You know, you remind me of the other director who dared you to go to court with this.
Yeah,
and that also is a demonstration of arrogance in the sense that we don't have to do anything because all I have to do is threaten you with court knowing that you're probably not going to want to pay for it.
Yeah, that was Rory. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and Rory said, and, when I do this and there's a violation, I write back and say, you violated the Sunshine Law. This is what you must do to cure your violation. Bob doesn't have the ability to tell me that I violated the law. That has to be the court. Well, no. The nice thing about the Sunshine Law is that it's the requester who determines whether or not there's a violation. Because if the requester doesn't determine there's a violation, there's nobody to go to court. You wouldn't have standing if I went on the air and said, I did the sunshine and I never got a response. You wouldn't have standing to bring suit because you weren't the one that was injured. So I am the one who determines that. And then Rory said, well, take me to court then. And this is really brave talk, because when I sued Michael Bora, guess who defended him? Dave Highsmith from the Attorney General's office. Yeah. And in Judge Sanzone's answer, she cited Highsmith for sanctionable conduct.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, because he cited a portion of the statute that had been amended. Yeah. So so it didn't cost Borja anything until the judgment finally came out, and then he had to pony up $1,000, which goes to the ethics commission.
Something tells me that needs to be upped a little bit more. The stakes should be a little bit higher.
Well, true, and maybe it's time to insert some personal damages in there.
Okay.
I mean, there is a risk. I've said it so many times on the show. Once you set the wheels of justice in motion by filing a suit, there's a crapshoot dimension to the whole thing. And you may think you've got a solid case. You may not win. You don't win, you're out the money you paid your lawyer and your court costs. So maybe that's something that some sharp-eyed senator needs to do. Maybe something like damages not to exceed $1,000 or something like that. Okay, it's time for the big halftime show. We'll come back to this after the halftime show. Go on with the card.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Donald Trump off the Colorado ballot. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The Colorado State Supreme Court, in a narrow decision, ruling the former president is disqualified under a clause in the 14th Amendment to the Constitution that bars insurrectionists from elected office. The amendment was ratified in 1868 to block former members of the Confederacy from holding office. Georgetown University legal professor Jonathan Turley tells Fox's Hannity the case will be on a fast track to the U.S. Supreme Court.
I think that the factual and legal basis of this opinion is really so porous that the Supreme Court will make fast work of it.
A spokesman for the Trump campaign saying in a statement they will swiftly file an appeal to the Supreme Court, calling it a deeply undemocratic decision. A voter challenge to exclude Mr. Trump's name from the ballot in North Carolina has been rejected by that state's Board of Elections. A new record's been set at the U.S. southern border. More than 12,600 migrants crossing the border illegally on Monday. Lieutenant Chris Oliveras of the Texas Department of Public Safety.
This is by far the worst they have ever experienced in terms of illegal border crossings, especially here in Eagle Pass, Texas.
Lieutenant Oliveras telling Fox's Your World with Neil Cavuto processing centers are filled to capacity and many migrants are being released into the U.S. A civil rights group has announced it will challenge new immigration laws in Texas.
The American Civil Liberties Union is spearheading the group challenge of the law, which allows prosecution of migrants who illegally enter or re-enter from a foreign country. The plaintiffs argue the law will not allow migrants to seek asylum or humanitarian protection from the U.S. government. In signing the bill Monday, Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott blamed President Joe Biden for not being tougher on border crossing.
Fox's Gernal Scott. America is listening to Fox News.
Santa's coming and things are looking up. Bank Pacific has rolled out Rudolph's favorite, My Christmas Loan, with the annual percentage rate as low as 7.49% and up to $50,000. And with our Bank Pacific contactless Visa debit card, you have the flexibility of using your money when you want, where you want. My Christmas Loan, contactless Visa debit card. Let's make Christmas season merrier in 23. Equal opportunity lender, credit conditions apply. Merry Christmas from Bank Pacific.
The Nissan Ninja is back, and he's slashing prices on our entire certified pre-owned inventory. But how low will he go? 20%? 30%? No, he's slashing up to 40%.
Nani?
All makes and models available. Sports cars? Slashed. Luxury cars? Slashed. Trucks? Slashed. Crossovers and SUVs? Slashed. Get to Nissan Guam before this Ninja disappears. Fees not included. See dealer for details.
After years-long negotiations, Southwest Airlines has reached a tentative new contract with its pilots union.
However, the union's board still needs to decide whether to send the deal to members for a ratification vote. The Southwest Airlines Pilots Association, which represents more than 10,000 pilots, did not provide the details of the deal. Its pilots have been demanding higher pay and better work rules. United, Delta, and American pilots have all secured hefty pay raises and improvements in working conditions in their new contracts. Hillary Barsky, Fox News.
Missouri's Supreme Court has struck down a law that threatened homeless people with jail time for sleeping on state land. The judges ruling unanimously to toss the law on a technicality because it violates a section of the Missouri Constitution prohibiting legislation from containing multiple unrelated subjects. The bill also contained provisions banning COVID-19 vaccine requirements for public workers in Missouri. An unfolding humanitarian disaster in northwest China, where Monday's earthquake has killed 131 people and injured many hundreds. Some survivors sleeping outside in frigid winter weather. The eruption of Iceland's volcano reported to be slowing.
The volcanic eruption is weakening, but the live video and the images of this eruption are still breathtaking. At its peak, fountains of lava were shooting 330 feet into the air at a rate of 66,000 gallons a second. Iceland is monitoring the lava flows. Most of it has gone east, and it appears so far to not be moving toward the town of Grindavik, which was fully evacuated evacuated on November 10th. There is some good news as well. In time for the holiday travel rush, there are no disruptions to flights to and from Iceland, and international flying routes are expected to stay open.
Fox's Brian Yennis. The residents of Grindavik downslope from the volcano were all evacuated last month after a rise in seismic activity. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
The holidays are here again, and American WaterTech wishes you and your loved ones a joyful holiday season. Our popular holiday special is back, and for a limited time only, we are offering the whole house system of a Connecticut non-electric water softener and a reverse osmosis water drinking system for the incredible discounted price of only $2,995, inclusive of basic installation and 1-year limited warranty. Hurry, this sale is on until December 29th while supplies last. See store for details or call us at 671-649-2301.
Christmas trees are going up at the Security Title Office in Tamuning, and with them comes the music and joy of the season. As we reflect on the ups and downs of 2023, one thing remains constant, and that is the deep gratitude we have for our customers and the meaningful work we do for our real estate community. Thank you for trusting us with your property. From our Security Title family to yours, we wish you a Christmas season filled with peace and joy.
Santa's coming and things are looking up. Bank Pacific has rolled out Rudolph's favorite, My Christmas Loan, with the annual percentage rate as low as 7.49% and up to $50,000. And with our Bank Pacific contactless Visa debit card, you have the flexibility of using your money when you want, where you want. My Christmas Loan, contactless Visa debit card. Let's make Christmas season merrier in 23. Equal opportunity lender, credit conditions apply. Merry Christmas from Bank Pacific.
You can pamper your pooch with a day at the spa, the dog spa. With 5 days left till Christmas, you can gift your canine companion a dog grooming session at the Bougie Booney Dog Salon, located in Tamuning. You can easily book your grooming session at the bougieBooney.booksy.com website, or send them a message at 671-797-4163.
So there we are, Tailgaters Rogues Gallery. Some of the best-looking people on the island. Maybe some of the best-looking people in the Pacific area. Let's go for the whole world, Jose.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, before the big halftime show here, I was talking about the Sunshine Law. Gave you a short tutorial how you, too, can make a Sunshine Law demand. It's pretty simple. Got to ask for public records, not information. And then I debunked this myth that there's a prohibition in the Sunshine Law that says you cannot disclose personnel matters. And what the statute actually says is this, constructing the introduction in subsection C. Nothing in this chapter shall be construed to require disclosure of records that are any of the following. Subsection C, personnel, medical, or similar files, the disclosure of which would constitute an unwarranted invasion of privacy. That, to me, does not mean anything dealing with what happened during the time you were on duty as a cop.
Or any desire to keep anything private, because a lot of people think that their public service ought to be private.
Yeah, and it can't be. That just can't work. Now, unwarranted invasion of privacy, to me, would mean something like how many children, wife's name, wife's maiden name, residence address, not your working address, but your residence address, what kind of car you drive, and things like that are the kinds of facts that are relevant to you, whether or not you're a cop. If it's a fact that's relevant to you because you are a cop, and the question deals with something you did as a cop on duty, I don't see how it can possibly be an invasion of personal privacy.
As long as it's all public record.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like would a entry in the phone book be public record?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now there is a section in here that talks about pending investigations. You don't, in the middle of investigation, you don't have, let me see if I can find that section. I don't think I brought it along. Yeah, I'm sorry. Subsection B, records of complaints to or investigations conducted by or records of intelligence, information, or security procedures of an agency or its personnel. But once the investigation is completed, then a public record showing the disposition of the investigation, it's got to be it's got to be disclosable. Before the investigation's over, there's nothing to disclose.
In the case of what happened at the precinct, you can request the public records of the staff of that night, even during an investigation, because that's still public record.
That's true.
That would have been disclosed whether an investigation is occurring or not.
That's right.
Okay, because I've heard some of those records were kept sealed where we can't disclose who worked there because it's under investigation.
Personnel matter under investigation, yeah. So you need a sharp pencil when you do this, but do it. And don't let anybody, and especially you reporters, don't let anybody fob you off. I say, oh, it's a personnel matter, I can't talk about it. And the correct answer is it's a personnel matter, I don't have to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. Okay, Chief, why don't you want to talk about it? Because you can. Well, because, the cop that I have the public record, there's a public record dealing with a cop, but he's the guy that keeps an eye on my motorcycle. I don't want to piss him off. You remember that?
Yeah.
When the chief came out in public and said that he got a report from a neighbor that a stranger went into his carport and was eyeballing his motorcycle. So he asked the precinct to make sure that somebody from the precinct was doing patrol checks on his motorcycle. Really nice. Okay, so Troy hit the nail on the head here. Troy, I hope you're listening, because don't let them fob you off with that personnel matter. When someone says that to you, give them 501, as you were 5 GCA 501C3, and tell them what the law is, and then say, you can disclose this, you just don't want to. Why don't you want to, Chief?
I would take a step further. If they keep refusing public information, and ask them, I don't know what the terminology is of the kind of questioning where you say, why do you want to withhold public information from the public?
Exactly.
Why do you want to withhold information that we ought to be knowing? What are you hiding?
Exactly. Yeah, if it's a public record, why don't you want to disclose it?
Who are you protecting? Ask those questions.
Exactly.
Make them uncomfortable.
Exactly. Okay, next on the card here is a pharmacies versus the legislature. And this ran in the Pacific Island Times. Bill proposes to expect prescription drugs from business privilege tax. I think maybe what they wanted to say was accept. Expect, they sound alike, but they really mean totally different things. So I'm going to correct it by, as lawyers would say, I'm going to correct it by interlineation. I take my pen, draw a line through accept, print, expect, print, accept, beside it, and initial it. Now I've corrected it by interlineation. And here's how it goes. Senator Jesse Lujan has introduced a bill seeking to exempt prescription medicines from the business privilege tax, in addition to other items earlier proposed to be listed as tax-free. Wrong. They're not going to be tax-free. The items are not going to be tax-free. Lujan said Bill 220-37 was a result of constituent feedback from the public hearing on previously filed Proposal 4-37 to lift the BPT on food and medicine for a year. We received testimony in support of Bill 437, as well as requests for us to consider forming legislation to completely exempt prescription medicine from the business privilege tax, Lujan said. After engaging with the healthcare providers then, and also after attending the dinner hosted recently by the Guam Medical Association to discuss improving healthcare in Guam, I believe this legislation will help both our people and the medical community, Lujan added. 220 is co-sponsored by Senator Chris Duenas, Frank Blas, Thomas Fisher, and Chris Barnett. All the Republicans except for, what's her name? Tello. Yeah. And here's a quote: ensuring access to health care by exempting prescription drugs is not just a matter of health, but a testament to our commitment as a governing body to ease the financial pain we are all facing and make essential medications affordable. This should provide relief to both our health care providers who dispense the prescribed medications and the patients who need them. Well, you got it half right. It's going to provide relief to those who... No, it doesn't. It doesn't provide any relief to those who prescribe the medications. Doctors write the prescriptions. The druggist, the pharmacist, fills the prescription. I'm gonna tell this for the 80th time, but it's worth repeating. You know, when I finally got my bachelor's degree, I didn't want to be a lawyer. I didn't want to go to law school. I had my heart set on medical school. But I couldn't pass the entrance exam for medical school. Yeah, really, Jose, you know, want to know why?
Why?
My handwriting wasn't bad enough. Yeah, just kidding.
Darn near perfect.
Yeah. So here's why I say this is pharmacies versus the legislature. And actually the pharmacies are on the same side as the legislature here. And here's the reason why. Here's how the gross receipts tax works. At the end of every month, everybody who has a business license figures out what his gross receipts were. In other words, how much revenue did he take in during the last month? And he pays a tax of 5% on the revenue. Whether or not he made a profit, he still has to pay that 5%. So it's not on profits, it's on gross receipts. So an unfortunate businessman, you know, in a startup business, especially maybe his first year, he took in $10,000, but his gross receipts, his gross receipts were $10,000, but he lost money. Well, he lost money, doesn't have to pay the tax, right? Wrong. He's got to pay 5% of $10,000, even if he lost money. That's how the gross receipts tax works. When you go to buy a prescription, when you go to buy your amoxicillin at the drugstore, you look at the bill. Do you see anything on that bill that shows gross receipts? No, you don't know what the gross receipts tax is unless you're really paying attention. You don't even know the druggist has to pay it. So if the gross receipts tax on prescription drugs, if prescription drugs are exempted from gross receipts tax, who does it help? It helps the pharmacist, not the guy buying the drugs, because the pharmacist is going to be able to keep 5% more of that revenue. Oh, yeah, but they got to lower the price, don't they? No, they don't have to lower the price. The tax is eliminated. It doesn't mean they have to lower the price. Next question. Why would a pharmacist want to lower his price? Because he doesn't have to pay 5% gross receipts tax on his gross receipts. Answer is he wouldn't want to. There's no reason for the pharmacist to lower his price, because you don't lower your price if you're competitive. Being a pharmacist is, in a sense, a monopoly. It's a form of state-sponsored rent-seeking. The only people that you can fill a pharmacy, the only place you can get your pharmacy, that your prescription filled that the doctor wrote for you, is at a pharmacy. You can't go to a grocery store, an automobile agency, a used car. Only pharmacists can do it. And they all charge the same price for the same drugs. So they can't compete on the basis of price. So if they can't compete on the basis of price, well, they could, but they don't. So let's say that druggist A says, I don't have to pay 5% gross receipts, so that that prescription that used to cost you $10, I'm only going to charge you $9.50 for. So how does this benefit the pharmacist? It doesn't benefit him at all unless he is able to fill more prescriptions than the competition. So if there's no price competition amongst the pharmacies, it will not lower the price. And pharmacies are not really very competitive one with the other. So there is not going to be a reduction in the price of pharmacists of prescription drugs if this bill passes. It's just going to mean more profit for the pharmacists, which I'm all for. You know, anytime we can increase the profits of private businesses, I'm for it. But don't go out there and campaign on, I reduce the cost of your drugs, because it's just not going to work out that way. It's time for me to go to Wrigley Field, but when I leave Wrigley Field, I'm going to be talking with Bob Kelly, who wants to talk about scripts, I guess, picking up on my little joke there. Probably going to tell us that scripts are all automated now. That would be a Bob Kelly type of comment, wouldn't it? Trying to let the air out of my joke. Okay, church, as you were, Wrigley Field, back to Bob Kelly.
Santa's coming and things are looking up. Bank Pacific has rolled out Rudolph's favorite, My Christmas Loan, with the annual percentage rate as low as 7.49% and up to $50,000. And with our Bank Pacific contactless Visa debit card, you have the flexibility of using your money when you want, where you want. My Christmas Loan, contactless Visa debit card. Let's make Christmas season merrier in 23. Equal opportunity lender, credit conditions apply. Merry Christmas from Bank Pacific.
Hi, this is Jerry Roberts. What's happening in the workplace? What about your job and career? What ideas will find their way into your world? That's what you get with The Extra Point every day on The Ray Gibson Show here on 93.3 FM. Sometimes it's about what's in the news, or working relationships, or how to get further and do better. I try to make it interesting, inspiring, and hopefully sneak a little fun in too. Be a part of it. 7:25 weekday mornings. The Extra Point, brought to you by First Hawaiian Bank.
Here we are in Wrigley, seventh inning stretch. I got a pitch for 2 more innings. If I retire the side, I can head for the dugout and call it a day. I've got Bob Kelly here on the phone. Bob gave a kind of an evaluation of various airports in the United States this morning on Ray's show. I don't remember if he talked about O'Hare or not, but the bad thing about O'Hare, it's a long haul from O'Hare to Wrigley Field, and it's not very much fun driving. So just on that basis alone, I would give O'Hare low ratings, right, Bob?
Well, and it does have some long walks, but it's certainly not by far the worst of the airports I've been in. And it's kind of a nice old facility that gives you a step back in time.
Now, you older, you younger, well, you're not that young, Bob. I used to fly out of Midway back in the day when Midway was the only airport in Chicago.
Well, Midway is still there.
Yeah, I know, and it still has some traffic, but there was a time it was the only game in town. So tell me about scripts, Bob.
A couple of things. One is where I was going to disagree. As you said, it didn't apply to doctors. Now, first off, I am going to agree with you that I don't see the patients or the purchasers of drugs, and I'll get back into that in a minute, getting any savings. But going back, it will help clinics and hospitals, because there's a lot of drugs used in a clinic when you go in and get your shot. Those are drugs that would be exempt. Now, Medicare is not going to change the rate they pay for a shot, because that's something that's a fixed rate. So the doctor is not going to turn around and lower his cost of Medicare by 5%. He's just going to make 5% more of the clinic, and it's going to go into their hands. Also, veterinarians, when you take a dog in to be, fixed in any way, that takes drugs. They have to pay for those drugs. Those would be exempt also. So in that aspect, there is going to be bigger margins for the clinics, hospitals, drugstores, veterinarians. But my question is, will they all lower their prices, or are they just going to add extra 5% to their margins? And I think you hit it on the head. They're going to have 5% bigger margins.
Let me talk about veterinarians for a second, right? So it's not what the veterinarian does, it's what the veterinarian's not going to do, right?
Not pay the not pass the 5% on.
Yeah, okay, good. That's very interesting, Bob. Thanks for adding that. I confess I didn't know that, but that's a really good point.
Well, yeah, when you go into the doctor, you almost always need a shot or something in there. That's all medication. So there are a lot of medicines, and definitely in hospitals, surgery centers, a lot of medicines, the stuff they use for putting, people, painkillers and so on, all that stuff is going to be in there too. So it's going to probably help clinics out, and maybe it will delay any potential price increases.
Okay, good call.
Talk to you later.
Thank you. Yeah, an interesting finding.
It is helping, but not the people intended.
Yeah, exactly. It's not helping the patient one iota. Okay, next item on the card is Doug Moylan versus Jay Areola. Well, actually the Areolas. And I have a letter written to Ken C. Areola Jr., better known as Jay. Half a day, Jay. On Thursday, December 14, at approximately 3:15 p.m., I understand the Department of Public Works Director Vince Areola verbally informed. Now, here's the vocabulary lesson for today, okay? Verbally. People say, well, it was all verbal. Verbal means words, This, Jose, this is verbal because it's words. Verbal means words. If you want to say not in writing, you use the word oral. Oral means not written, but spoken. All right.
An oral exam.
Exactly. Not a verbal exam. Yeah. Verbally informed Assistant Attorney General Thomas Keeler via phone that he would not meet with the AG's office investigative teams regarding the roadway damages caused by GWA personnel and others to the Government of Guam properties, which is main and village roadways. I understand from that conversation that the DPW director informed Assistant Attorney General Keeler that he consulted with you and Anita and Attorney Anita Areola. Wow. So we've got Jay, Anita, and Vince. No.
Well, you know what the main highway organization in the States is? AAA.
AAA, yeah. That's right. Jay, Anita, and Vince, Jay, Vince, and Anita all get their heads together here. I'm not going to talk about the Three Stooges, but yeah. Okay, here we go. I understand the conversation. The DW director informed AAG Keeler that he consulted with you and Attorney Anita Areola. Further, that you advised him not to cooperate with this law enforcement for fear of criminal prosecution. Would you say that is being a little bit paranoid, Jose?
A bit.
I ran into this director the other day, and he was talking about the mass transit prosecution. And he said, that's kind of enough to make anybody paranoid. And I said to that director, I said, well, are you paranoid? He said, I wouldn't be if there weren't so many people out to get me. We seek your clarification of whether, one, your firm represents Vince Areola as his personal attorney. Yeah, I think the only agency where personal attorneys represent government employees would be down at the port when they get fired for not coming to work. Two, if you're instructing him not to cooperate, discuss, meet with, assist in investigating with the Attorney General's office on ongoing civil and criminal investigation, he wants a clarification of that. Three, if you are instructing us not to speak with and or discuss legal matters with Director Areola on the government roadway damages investigation and the many various other non-roadway damages related to projects that the director is responsible for, overseeing in his official capacity as a director of one of Guam's largest departments. He's asking, is this what you're doing? Telling him not to speak with me, our team? Are you telling him not to talk with anybody? Or are you telling him not to talk with anybody about other projects? And then he goes on to say, if true, what A.G. Keeler related to me, this situation presents a bigger problem. We are concerned that your client may direct others under his authority as their director to not cooperate with the AG's office ongoing civil and criminal investigation into government roadway damages. As you know, if Mr. Areola believes that he has personal criminal exposure, then, let's see. He should not be directing and advising others in his official capacity not to cooperate with government roadway damage investigations. To do so may constitute obstructing government functions in violation of 9 GCA 55.45. It's what we used to call obstruction of justice. So if Vince Areola puts out this note to folks at Public Works, anybody from the Attorney General's office comes around here and asks questions about damaging to the roadway, tell him you can't talk about it.
It's a personnel matter.
No, it's not it's a Public Works matter.
It's a Public Works matter.
Yeah. That's what Doug told Jay. Until such time as we understand exactly what yours and your client's legal position is on this matter, and in compliance with the ethical rules about communicating with a represented client, I have instructed AAG Keeler not to communicate with your client, Director Areola, on any matter. And then he cites Guam Rules of Professional Conduct, Rule 4.2. In other words, when a prosecutor knows that a person is represented by counsel, he shouldn't go to the person, he should go to the lawyer. And he's citing Professional Rules of Conduct 4.2 on that. And Doug is erring on the side of overcaution here. I don't think Keeler lied to him. That doesn't sound right. Keeler probably told him what Vince said. Now, Vince may not have told Keeler, what Vince told Keeler may have been misleading because Jay tells Vince, Vince tells Keeler. Vince is not a lawyer. He may have garbled what Vince's advice. He may not have relayed exactly what Vince said. So until Doug is clear that Vince is not going to talk to him in the absence of counsel, Vince says, I'm not going to talk to you. Okay, I'm not going to try to talk to you. I want a clarification from Jay. We got enough areolas here to get to the bottom of this thing, right?
How much of this, this is the question I have. Something is being investigated, but not on the level of criminal investigation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There are attorneys involved, which are giving legal advice, not familiar or personal advice. How much of what the Attorney General is asking falls under attorney-client privilege? Can those questions be answered?
If the Attorney General is advising Vince with respect to something in the agency, yeah, then it starts out as being attorney-client privilege. Yeah, privilege communication. And of course, this is what the defense is in the Guam Mass Transit case, because Keeler gave Ibanez advice. He was a civil attorney. He gave Ibanez advice. So Ibanez say privileged communication. How can you prosecute me when one of your guys has his privileged communication?
Is it always automatic when an attorney gives information to somebody that it's privileged information, or does it have to be an official capacity?
Yeah, it's got to be an official capacity, and there has to be an attorney-client privilege established, which oftentimes means a fee agreement, but not necessarily. And it's a subjective determination on behalf of the client. If the client thinks that's his lawyer, it's his lawyer, unless it's just completely outrageous. I have sued people and then have them come back and retain me later on. And I said, yeah, I'm kind of surprised that you wanted to hire me as your lawyer because I already sued you. Yeah, well, that time when you were my lawyer, I was kind of impressed by the way you handled it. Dude, I wasn't your lawyer. I was on the other side.
You're impressed by your success.
Exactly, yeah. This is hard stuff for laymen sometimes to get on the right side, and that's why the rules of professional conduct are designed to really protect the interest of the lay person. Okay, back to the story then. Where was I here? Until such time as we understand exactly what yours and your client's legal position is on the matter, in accordance with ethical rules with a represented client, I've instructed Keeler not to communicate with Vince on any matter. In addition, please be informed that DPW's Director Linda Ibanez and Darren Munya, DPW Highway Maintenance, voluntarily met with us on December 7. And I'm told fully cooperated with the government roadway damages investigation after being called by my AG investigators to assist us in this ongoing investigation. Since that date, DPW documents they promised would be sent to our office have not been provided. We trust that your client did not direct these government officials not to produce these documents, especially if he believes he may have any personal criminal liability. Now, this is really sticky. Now, let's say that when Ibanez looks at these documents, and it's an exaggerated hypothetical to make this really clear. Vince writes to Ibanez and says, borrow a plow from a farmer, and while the blacktop is still fresh, make sure you hook the plow to a bulldozer and drag it through the blacktop so it comes out really rough, and it's going to make it hard to drive over. That would be pretty incriminating, wouldn't it? This is just a Hong Kong. This is just a
hugely out there.
A really clear hypothetical. And Linda looks at that and says, "Oh, I better not send this to Doug, because this is incriminating against my director. Not good. Even worse. Wow, I better ask Vince if it's okay to send this." Goes to Vince and says, "Oh, don't you dare send that to Doug Moylan. If he sees that, he'll prosecute me." See how sticky this is going to get? Yeah. In other words, we maintain and reserve our right to exercising prosecutorial discretion. And it's signed by Doug Moylan, Attorney General. He's cross-copied Roy B. Kanata and the Honorable Lourdes Leon Guerrero, all senators in the Guam legislature. I guess Roy's going to get two. One is a senator and one is the Honorable Roy B. Kanata. And he also cross-copied Linda Ibanez, Deputy Director. So, you know, there may be a real hidden benefit here. Because, you know, Jay Areola, once upon a time, the Bar Association wanted to establish a softball team. And we heard, hey, you know, Jay Areola is a pretty good shortstop. Let's see if we could sign him up to play on our softball team. I don't remember who it was, called up and said, "Hey, Jay, we're starting a Bar Association softball team. We want you to play shortstop. Will you play with us? Will you play shortstop for us?" Jay Areola says, "Hell no. I never play softball. If it ain't hardball, count me out." Jay plays hardball. We all know that. And he's a very successful attorney and has that reputation of playing hardball. He's not anybody's pushover, that's for sure. So you can depend on him providing vigorous advocacy for anybody. Now, when you got the Areola brothers, that makes it, double down. So if, and let me stop here for a second. Now, the way Doug prosecuted the folks from public health and rapid transit, it's kind of clear that it's open season on directors, not for crimes like theft, embezzlement, etc., which, you know, happens and must be prosecuted, but for crimes dealing with the way they did their jobs. That seems like something of a reach. I'm not going to prejudge the prosecutor's discretion, but it certainly seems like that. If it seems like that to me, I suspect every director is saying, "Oh, shucks, is Doug Moylan, if I screw up this job, is Doug Moylan going to come after me? If the director of public works doesn't have enough school buses to haul the kids, is he going to be prosecuted for that? If the territorial librarian is not out collecting library fines vigorously, is Doug going to prosecute him for that?" See what I'm saying? Yeah, so you could see where they're all paranoid, and you could see where Vince has got easy access to a lawyer. Hey, Jay, am I going to get prosecuted for this thing with the potholes? What should I do? And a lawyer's first words out of a lawyer's mouth are going to say, "Don't you say boo." If somebody from the prosecution comes and talks to you and says, "What time is it?" point to the clock. Don't you say anything. That's kind of standard advice. So then we've got this obstruction, this interference with government operations. If there's a suspicion that the documents that were promised to the investigators by the employees at Public Works don't arrive on Doug's desk, what's Doug going to do? He'll either do a sunshine or he'll subpoena them. And what's Jay going to do? If it's a sunshine, he's going to advise Vince, don't provide those documents. If it's a subpoena, he's going to move to quash the subpoena. So the collateral benefit here is we might get some clarity on this. I can't talk about it. It's a personnel matter thing. Not to mention that anything that makes for good talk radio can't be all bad. Okay, I got to head for Churchill Downs.
Santa's coming and things are looking up. Bank Pacific has rolled out Rudolph's favorite, My Christmas Loan, with the annual percentage rate as low as 7.49% and up to $50,000. And with our Bank Pacific contactless Visa debit card, you have the flexibility of using your money when you want, where you want. My Christmas Loan, contactless Visa debit card. Let's make Christmas season merrier in 23. Equal opportunity lender, credit conditions apply. Merry Christmas from Bank Pacific.
Christmas trees are going up at the Security Title Office in Tamuning, and with them comes the music and joy of the season. As we reflect on the ups and downs of 2023, one thing remains constant, and that is the deep gratitude we have for our customers and the meaningful work we do for our real estate community. Thank you for trusting us with your property. From our Security Title family to yours, we wish you a Christmas season filled with peace and joy.
Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. 6 furlongs. I crossed the finish line. The race will be over. I can look for the wreath of roses, the run for the roses, and head for home. Next item on the card, probably the last item on today's card, is SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States versus the deep state. Now, ordinarily, we don't think of the Supreme Court taking sides. We see it as a neutral tribunal. As Chief Justice Roberts said, the Supreme Court's job is to call balls and strikes. But given that there are now 6 conservative justices on the Supreme Court, what a horrible thing that is. The leftist media is painting it as the Supreme Court, versus the government, versus the president, versus this, that, or the other thing. And I kind of hope so, as you'll see when I get into this article. But there's some background that we get into this here that's kind of important for understanding. It goes like this. The article is entitled, "The Little-Known Rule Change That Made the Supreme Court All-Powerful." More than 80 years ago, the court decided it didn't need to settle whole cases, but could limit its review to specific questions it liked. You must feel for the fishermen of Cape May, New Jersey. They had a fair grievance and took it to court, all the way to the Supreme Court. But along that journey, their lawsuit became something else, a way to possibly remake administrative law. Now, when you talk about the deep state, a lot of it arises in administrative law. Federal agencies making rules and regulations oftentimes that are only vaguely connected to a statute. So these folks are not elected. They're under the supervision of the president. Oftentimes they have partisan axes to grind, the deep state. So these fishermen took their case to the Supreme Court. And here's how it goes. They just want to make a living catching herring. But justices are more interested in using their case to weigh in on a different legal question entirely. Now, this reporter here is over on the left, and as you'll see as we go through this. This is the story of Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimundo, one of the blockbuster cases on the court's docket this year. The case involves the federal law requiring fishermen to, quote, carry inspectors as observers on their fishing boats in order to monitor compliance with a federal agency's rules. Okay, federal agency has rules. The National Marine Fishery Service has rules about how you catch fish. And I suspect it's probably a book that looks like the New York phone book, right? And the statute says that the fishing boats have to carry them. What does that mean to you, Jose? What would that mean to you?
That they're forcing the fishermen.
No. The statute says carry.
Oh, what would it mean?
Yeah. What does the word carry mean to you?
Put it anywhere?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let them come on board. Carry them.
Oh.
Right? Yeah. And you still hear that among certain parts of our population. I'm waiting for my transportation to carry me downtown.
Uh-huh.
Right? Yeah. That's what carry would mean to the average man.
Every fisherman has to have.
You got to let them come on board.
Yeah.
That's all. If all you knew was the statute. Okay, now we go on. The regulator, the National Maritime Fisheries Service, recently interpreted carry to mean pay for. And began charging fishermen roughly 20% of their revenue to pay the monitors' wages.
20%.
20%. So we've got this rule that says that our monitors have to ride on the fishing boats to enforce regs, or they have to enforce regs. We've decided in order to do that, they got to ride on the fishing boats. The statute says carry. Okay, we'll let them on board. But we've interpreted the word carry means you got to pay the salaries, of these folks. And began charging fishermen roughly 20% of their revenue to pay the monitors' wages. A group of fisheries sued but lost in the D.C. Circuit, which said that because of what's known as the Chevron Doctrine, a phrase every lawyer knows, the Chevron Doctrine.
You've brought that up before.
Yeah, the Chevron Doctrine. Yeah. And it really has nothing to do with the 3 stripes a sergeant wears on his sleeves.
Oil?
Oil. Yeah, or get where you buy your gas. Okay. Recently interpreted carry to mean pay for and began charging fishermen roughly 20% of their revenue to pay the monitors' wages. Let's take a short break here. Let's call it a day. I'll come back to this tomorrow. And let me say, for the record, let's go, Brandon. I'll get it right sooner. Let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
The former president blocked from the ballot. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News, by the state Supreme Court in Colorado.
The decision was 4-3, saying former President Trump is disqualified under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. The court's majority opinion says it would be a wrongful act under the election code to list Trump as a candidate. This marks the first case in the nation where plaintiffs have managed to succeed in the disqualification. The former president's lawyers promised an appeal to as high as the U.S. Supreme Court.
But Fox's Gernal Scott reports time is short as the Colorado Secretary of State must certify the state's primary ballots 2 weeks from tomorrow. Ohio Republican Senator J.D. Vance telling Fox's Hannity this is an assault on democracy.
This is not just about Donald Trump. This is about millions of American voters who are being told by judges in Colorado, you don't get to vote for the candidate that you would like to vote for. How is that democracy?
All of the justices on the Colorado Supreme Court were appointed by Democrat governors. Another record day Monday at the U.S. southern border.
Sources telling Fox News in the last 24 hours there have been more than 12,600